Let me ask you a question that might make you feel a little uncomfortable. If customer success disappeared tomorrow, would your company replace it with account management or support? Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Anika Zubair, and welcome to the Customer Success Pro podcast, your go-to space for real talk, expert advice, and actionable insights in the world of customer success. I'm a CS executive leader, award-winning strategist, CS coach, and customer success fanatic. I help CSMs and CS leaders build the skills and the confidence to become revenue-driving pros and scale world-class CS teams. So whether you're brand new to CS or a seasoned leader, this podcast is here to support your growth. Because customer success isn't a destination, it's a journey. And I'm here to be your guide and navigate every step of your journey. So join me every Wednesday where you'll get fresh CS tips, tricks, and strategies you can actually use. Some weeks I'll share my own insights and best practices from working in CS over the last 13 years. And once a month, I'll bring on expert guests to dive into the most relevant and pressing topics in customer success today. So if you're ready to level up, hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in, and let's make your CS journey a little bit easier together. I want you to sit with that for a second, because in 2026, that is the question that is no longer theoretical. It's already happening every single day and all around us. I am seeing CS teams quietly be absorbed into sales, others be pushed closer and closer to support, and they have the same exact title that they've always had. They've been customer success, but suddenly they have a very different job. And today, I want to talk to you about why this is happening and what it means for your career, and also the one decision that will determine where customer success is going to land next. Because here is something that you're probably not going to hear elsewhere, but I am always giving it to you straight on the podcast, which is customer success is not being replaced, it is being redefined. And if you do not define it yourself, someone else is going to do it for you. And this is exactly what is happening right now in the world of tech and software. Budgets are tighter. Year after year, headcount gets leaner and leaner, and everyone's role is being asked one question: how do you make or save money for this business? And as we finish up 2025 and as we move into 2026, it is now February 2026. We are fully in the middle of Q1 of 2026. Your board and your exec team have stopped tolerating fuzzy, nice to have answers when it comes to customer success. And just saying that you have a good relationship with your senior stakeholders or your largest logos, it's not enough. Customers seeming happy, it's just not enough. Usage looking healthy, again, not enough. And when a function cannot clearly answer that question, well, leadership starts to really simplify that entire department. And if you're touching renewals, expansion, or commercial conversations, you get labeled as account management or back to sales. And if you've handled things like customer issues or adoption problems or integration or reactive requests, you get labeled as support. Now, this is not because leaders hate customer success. It's honestly because there's so much ambiguity out there, and it does not actually survive a pressure test, and CS ends up just dying within the pressure. And customer success has been ambiguous for a very long time. Listen, I have worked in CS now for going on 14 years, and customer success seems to be redefining itself every 3 to 5 years. And the thing is, we end up doing it all, and we end up helping everyone. And honestly, we really have done ourselves a bit of disservice when it comes to our roles and what everyone within the business thinks about it, because it has been so ambiguous for so long. And the problem is, nobody wants to say this out loud. Customer success honestly tried to be everything. Back during the pandemic or pre-2020, everyone in customer success was honestly doing everything. Onboard the customer, make sure that they see value, make sure you're technical enough to integrate with your product and all the other products that your customers are looking at. Make sure that you also have commercial acumen so that you can continue to show value and hit renewals. All of these hats that customer success professionals have been wearing for years and years and years, it's just led to customer success trying to be everything. And I get it. We're told to be a strategic partner, a trusted advisor, a renewal owner, an adoption lead, an escalator buffer, an internal therapist, basically. You become a therapist for your customer. And when you end up trying to be everything, you literally become nothing. And I know that there's a saying out there, jack of all trades, master of none, and there's a lot more to that saying, but I really do feel customer success has become a jack of all trades and a master of none in some ways. So, what ends up happening is pressure starts ending up hitting your leadership teams, whether it's budgets, whether it's growth, whether it's really evaluating churn and what's happening within your business. Your C suite starts to ask themselves a very simple question. And they start to ask the question, is this role revenue or is it cost? And for those of you who are in executive positions or who are listening to this podcast and have done business school, it's just basically taking into consideration, is your customer team part of a revenue team or a loss team? So when you look at a profit and loss statement, it's really evaluating which side of the coin does your team end up falling on. And if your daily work does not clearly ladder to revenue outcomes and lead to revenue outcomes with your customers, you already know where that conversation is going to end up. And I know a lot of people have felt this as well. For those of the people who have gone through layoffs or company restructures because customer success wasn't seen as essential, you know the feeling, you know what happened. The executive team sat down and really looked at customer success and thought, is this team generating revenue for my business or my service? Or is it actually just costing us money? And at the end of the day, even though you might factor in customer success as part of cost of goods sold, which is again very common in software as a service, what ends up happening is cost of goods sold is just not enough to cover the cost of your salary or your entire team's salary. And then your executive team starts to really look at and evaluate, this team is costing more money than it's actually bringing in. And when you end up sitting in this uncomfortable truth of costing the business more money by having customer success rather than making it, honestly, this is where CS teams start to disappear. And this is also why CS teams are feeling squeezed from both sides. Sales says that if you own renewals, you are account management. And then support, on the other hand, they say if you handle issues, you are basically us. You're the support team. And customer success sits somewhere in the middle saying, no, 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 I am different. Trust me, I am different. But without the proof, different doesn't matter. And that's what I want to really highlight on today's podcast episode. All right, quick pause because this part really matters. If you are leading a CS team right now, chances are that they are busy. And I mean busy in all caps. Back-to-back calls, reactive conversations, renewals feeling heavier every single quarter. Your team is doing the work, but they are not confident in leading commercial conversations, articulating value, or walking into renewals feeling calm and prepared. And no amount of internal slides or pep talk is going to fix that gap. Now imagine your team leading customer conversations with clarity. They know how to uncover real business outcomes, and they can confidently talk about progress, value, and ROI. QBRs are going to suddenly feel strategic, not performative, and renewals are now expected rather than stressful. Your team feels empowered, aligned, and trusted by customers and leadership. And this is exactly why companies bring me in as a workshop facilitator. My signature talks and workshops are practical and tactical, interactive, and built for real customer success teams, and they are not fluff or theories. We work on real accounts, real conversations, and real challenges that your team is facing right now. From commercial conversations to scalable success plans to turning quarterly business reviews into ROI stories that your execs actually care about, these sessions are designed to drive measurable impact fast. So if you're planning a team offsite, an SKO, or an enablement session for your team this year, you can learn more at thecustomersuccesspro.com/team hyphen event. That's thecustomersuccesspro.com/team hyphen event, or click the link down in the show notes to check out our workshops. All right, now back to the episode. So let's start to talk about the mistakes that I end up seeing happening that kind of got us here when it comes to customer success being the everything department and this weird position that we find ourselves in, which is, are we account management? Are we support? No, we're actually customer success, but there's a lot of reasons why we'd end up being the monkey in the middle, for lack of better terms. And the first mistake that I think we've end up causing ourselves is we've end up equating value with activity. And what I mean by this is so many customer success teams are measuring activity, such as calls or business reviews delivered or number of in-person customer meetings or emails sent or the number of check-ins done with executive stakeholders. All of this is important, by the way. I'm not saying this work is not important within customer success, but the problem that ends up happening is that too many teams are measured on the number of calls they're having. And too many executives think that the more calls or the more business reviews that a customer success professional ends up having, the more value a customer is going to get. Now, listen, I really don't know the ins and outs of your business and how your subscription or how your customers use your product and service. But again, let me tell you that more calls with a customer success manager doesn't necessarily mean that your customer at the end of the day are achieving their business outcomes with your product and service. And this is where that whole imbalance lies, because we continue to make the mistake of equating ourselves that, hey, the more activity we end up doing, the more value we're actually delivering to both our customers and our company. And unfortunately, none of those outcomes are actually true. Now, the second mistake that I end up seeing happen way too often is we end up waiting until a renewal to actually talk about all of the impact that we have in customer success and all the impact that our product and service is having every single day for our customers at their company. I was actually just talking to someone that I coach, and I was letting her know that basically when you go through a customer journey, we end up having these criteria of exactly how we onboard a customer, what milestones they have to hit. And we have all of these internal metrics that we're measuring, which is really great. But what I saw happen is she was waiting until the renewal. She almost wanted to wait until she gathered all this data and information before she started to share the impact of how the product and service was working for a customer. And I just want to call out that the problem we keep doing is we keep saying, oh, let's wait for a business review to talk about the impact, or let's wait for a renewal conversation or a call with the stakeholder to actually talk about the impact and value. But by the time you are done proving all that value and doing all those calls, and by the time you make it to a renewal, you're already too late, because the customer has either moved on to another product and service, or they're thinking about someone else, or they're just thinking they didn't get enough value from your product and service. And again, we are almost causing this problem for ourselves because we think we have to have all of these data points added up before we deliver this one big, juicy quarterly business review. But again, I'm telling you right now, based on all the clients I work with and all the customers I've served over the decade that I've worked in customer success, your customers would rather have small bite-sized impact or value measurements or milestone measurements rather than you having a laundry list of things to discuss when it comes at a quarterly business review or a renewal conversation. Because again, you're too late at that point. And then the third mistake that I see happening way, way, way too often, especially right now where customer success is in that weird middle ground between support and account management, is I see way too many customer success professionals and full teams avoiding revenue language because it feels uncomfortable. Now, I see this constantly. And I actually run workshops and team trainings to really help teams level up when it comes to being commercially confident in renewal conversations or in upsell conversations or in value realization calls. And if you are interested in on any of that, feel free to email me or check out the links in the show notes because I do tons of workshops to really help CSMs feel confident in revenue conversations. But coming back to my point is I constantly see that CS professionals are super, super uncomfortable having revenue or commercially focused conversations. CSM basically ends up saying, I don't want to sound salesy, or I don't work in sales. I don't want to push my customers. I don't want to own the number. But also, silence does not protect you, by the way. Not owning part of that renewal conversation, not owning an upsell, not owning a commercial conversation, unfortunately, it kind of erases you. It doesn't actually save you from being cut because sales is so cutthroat. You actually end up doing yourself a disservice. And again, not leveling up your commercial skills is probably hurting you more than helping you. And the fourth mistake that I see happening is basically letting everyone else tell your story. And what I mean by this is customer success doesn't tend to articulate impact as well as sales will, or even finance, or even support. Like what I have seen is that their version of what they're trying to say, it's almost like being a friend to a customer. But again, your job in customer success, and I will continue to say this throughout 2026, your job is to protect and grow revenue, whether it's by reducing churn or by increasing upsells or by guaranteeing renewals. All of that is your job, is to protect and grow revenue. And if you're not able to actually articulate the value and the impact behind that, I'm sorry to say the other teams that you work with, they will. And I'm just letting you know that their version of impact, it's not going to favor you. So just be crystal clear that if you let someone else handle the commercial conversation or articulate the value realization of your product and service, it'll serve the sales team. It won't actually serve customer success. Now, what actually determines whether customer success becomes account management or support? Like, here's the one thing, honestly, at this point, it's can you clearly connect customer outcomes to business outcomes? That is exactly what we need to do every single day in customer success. Not activity, not effort, not anything other than outcomes. And this is where we draw the line in the sand, okay? Customer success that can make sure that they tie adoption to revenue protection or tie progress to expansion readiness, or maybe even tie outcomes to executive priorities, that is when it starts to become a strategic growth function and not just the support function. Customer success, when they start owning all of those parts and really showing up as a strategic growth partner, that is when customer success gets operationalized, gets prioritized, and honestly, it gets the attention from the executive team because suddenly you are helping grow the business rather than continue to be a cost on the profit and loss statement of the business. So I've talked a lot about the importance. I've talked a lot about what the executive team is probably thinking about when it comes to customer success, account management, or support. But if you are listening to this podcast and you're starting to think, oh my gosh, I don't want my customer success role to be erased, and I don't want to be in account management, and I don't want to be in support. I want to define customer success. Well, here are my tips on how you can actually fix this and what this actually looks like in practice. First of all, you need to anchor value conversations early. Now, what I mean by this is you need to define success in the customer's language, okay? Not in your product's language. So not in the features that they use, not in the integrations, not even in the data or the dashboards that you have within your product. I need you to track product your product and the customer outcomes in a way that makes sense for them. I've said this before and I'll say it again. There's probably three main reasons why your customer bought your product and service. One of it is probably they're using your product and service to make some money, or they're using your product to save them some time, or they're using your product to maybe reduce risk within their company. Which of the reasons why? Because those are the business outcomes. And your job is to now translate your product and your product's language into their language, into their business outcomes. Now, you need to also track progress visibly and consistently. Now, I know some of us make success plans and we love putting together a good slide deck. I think that's probably the number one thing customer success loves doing at this point. We love a good slide deck. But the thing is, we build these beautiful progress trackers or success plans or project plans or whatever you want to call it, and then we let them die. And we never bring them back up in customer conversations. And I need you to make sure that as you speak to your customer, even in a quick email, a quick call, whatever it is, I need you to start to track progress and make sure they visibly see it and that they consistently see as well all of the value that your product is delivering. Again, not the usage, not the logins, not actually how the product is being used, but the outcome of the product being used. So speak in outcomes, not in features. And I need you to start to normalize revenue conversations as a part of their success. For a lot of us, talking about revenue, money, upsells, renewals, it's uncomfortable. I've done a whole podcast episode about how uncomfortable it is. But the thing is, you need to start owning that part because it's not a betrayal of trust and you're not being overly salesy. If you actually deliver value regularly and consistently to your customer over the course of weeks, months, years, whatever the contract term is, it's not a betrayal of trust to start to talk about how they can continue to use more of the product, aka an upsell, or how they're going to continue to stay using your product for years, aka a renewal. It is not a betrayal of trust. I really just want you to hear that because I think a lot of customer success professionals think starting to talk about upsells or renewals almost becomes icky and yucky. And it's only icky and yucky because you didn't prove the value. And then that's on you at the end of the day. And this is not about turning CS into sales. I really, really hope you're getting that. It's about making value undeniable. It's about making value so obvious that your customer knows that they cannot live without your product or service. So I think I've shared this story before, but I just want to reiterate that early in my career, I was a top performing customer success manager and my customers loved me. I loved building those strong relationships with my customer. And internally, I was really trusted, which was really, really great. Like my executives and my leaders, they really trust me. But when layoffs came around, the question wasn't, is Anika good enough? Or is Anika good at her job? The question was, what happens if this role disappears? And that moment changed how I showed up forever. I stopped describing my job as what I did, and I started describing it by what I changed. Because I was there and I did make change and transformation happen within my customers and my book of business. But unfortunately, my wider team and company just didn't see that. They just saw the activities, everything I was doing day in and day out. And I instead started to talk about all of the revenue I protected, all of the risk that I ended up reducing, all of the expansion that I enabled, all of the executives that I got to sign off on case studies. Like this was the work that mattered because this was starting to show the impact rather than the activity. So I'd like for you to think of customer success like a bridge. If no one can see what is on the other side of that bridge, then the bridge is optional. Your job is to make the destination visible. So make sure that your impact is visible so that your department isn't erased. All right. I love on these solo episodes to challenge you. So here is my weekly challenge for you. What I want you to do this week is I want you to write one sentence for each of your accounts that answers this simple question. Okay. And the question is, because of our work, this customer is now able to blank. That's it. The question is, because of our work, this customer is now able to blank. And try not to use features and try not to use tools. What I want you to use is business outcomes only. And if you struggle to write that sentence, that is your signal. That means that you are probably working in activity and not in impact. And that is where your work needs to focus next. All right, we covered a lot in today's podcast, so let's quickly recap. I just want to let you know that customer success is not disappearing in 2026, but vague customer success is. And if you cannot show outcomes, you will be absorbed into sales, account management, or into support. Also, we did cover how CS does not need to choose between account management or support. What it really needs to do is choose clarity and understanding of what purpose and what value they deliver. And it's all about clarity of value, clarity of impact, and clarity of your role. That is how this profession survives and evolves in the world of 2026, in the world of AI, in the extremely fast-moving world of technology that we all work in. Now, if this episode resonated with you, could you make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast so you do not miss what is coming up next? And if you have thoughts on this, drop a comment down below or share this episode with someone in CS who needs to hear it, because the future of this role and the future of customer success is being decided right now, and you get to influence where it lands. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and I cannot wait to talk to you next week. Catch you later. Thanks for tuning in to the Customer Success Pro podcast. I hope you picked up something valuable to take back to your team. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you took just 10 seconds to leave a review on Apple or Spotify. It helps more CS pros like yourself discover the show. And creating new episodes takes a lot of work, so leaving a nice review keeps me motivated to keep creating. And don't forget to hit subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcast episodes. I drop a new episode every Wednesday packed with practical tips. And if you've got a topic you'd love for me to cover or want to be a guest on my show, send me a message. All the details are in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. And hey, if this episode helped you, share it with a fellow CSM or CS leader. Remember, sharing is caring. Cheers to your CS journey, and I'll catch you next week for our next episode.